Thanks very much, Andrew. Regardless of where you are in the province, chances are you will face some cleanup if floodwaters touch down in your area. And of course, Leah, pathogens front and center with a lot of people.
Absolutely, because that's what's happening with this floodwater, right? There's all kinds of nasty business in this floodwater. So I went and spoke with the head of microbiology at the U of C about this water, specifically what's in it and how sick it can make us. And he said, you know, there are some very serious pathogens in this water, particularly for children and those with underlying medical conditions.
E. coli 0157, you know, can cause very serious illness, particularly in young children and elderly people. I mean, that's a disease that in about 10% of people that get infected with that organism, they can develop renal failure, which requires, you know, long-term hospitalization to support them while their kidneys are regaining function, and so that's a very serious illness. Giardia, beaver fever, causes a type of gastroenteritis.
So those are some nasty things, obviously. So what we're seeing there is all this water. And, you know, people are concerned about dumping this sewage. You know, what's happening when that sewage hits the pavement again? And I asked Dr. Armstrong about this, and he says, you know, it's not really that big of a deal if you're touching it with, you know, your hands and that sort of thing, as long as you wash your hands. Because the big problem comes with ingesting this water. So we don't want to ingest that water. So if you're anywhere near it, you really, really need to wash your hands. The other thing you really want to do is watch what your children are doing if you're in those flood areas, because we don't want our kids in that water at all, because we know children, right? They put their hands in their mouths and, you know, they can get some of that bad bacteria and viruses into their mouths. They can ingest it there. So we have to really make sure that children are not playing in this water and not running around in bare feet either. So make sure they're wearing their shoes and make sure they're washing your hands, because you just simply cannot ingest this stuff. It's just way too dangerous.
Okay, so there's contact with the water that we can't see, but of course a lot of people will be concerned about the long-term impact of this. Mold has to be, of course, front and center when it comes to how some people are going to be dealing with this past these next few days.
Exactly. So this is part of the whole cleanup process, is really getting that water stained stuff out of the house, particularly things like insulation, like rugs, like drywall, because I spoke with Dr. Armstrong about this, and he says there's black mold that really likes to grow specifically on that wet drywall. Very dangerous.
If it's not contained properly, you can inhale the spores into your lungs, and once they get into the lungs, they can start to grow there if there's, you know, if your immune system is not completely up to snuff, and so then it can start to invade into the body and cause an invasive disease, and which can be fatal. Fortunately, there are drugs that can be used to treat the condition, but it's still a very serious illness, and you're going to be very, very sick for a long time.
Very sick for a very long time. So you're seeing these guys getting rid of this stuff, and you know, they really need to be careful that all that stuff is moved out of the house. Professor Armstrong did say, however, though, if you've got, you know, linoleum or tile, those surfaces can be cleaned and disinfected, and that's okay. They'll be okay, but it's the stuff that really absorbs that water. That's the stuff that just needs to be cleared right out. And again, this mold is really, really dangerous for people with underlying medical conditions. So if they have maybe heart disease, if they have emphysema, if they have asthma, that kind of thing, that's when it's really, really challenging for these people. So it's really important to clean all of that stuff out. And you know, Professor Armstrong said if you can get a hold of them, if they're not too busy, if you can get the professionals to come in and really clean this out and make sure everything is properly sanitized, he says that would be ideal.
The experienced set of eyes, of course, a resource that you want to tap into if you can. Thanks very much, Leah.
You're very welcome.